And we live. Hey guys, sorry about my technical difficulties earlier. I did delete that video, so shout out to the person who liked it before I could even delete it. But welcome to my channel, Watch Your Mouth Reviews. This is your boy James, where I am here to give my honest review while trying to watch my mouth. It's not going to happen in this video, but that's all right. We'll live to fight another day. Joining me by popular demand, because I got her here, you guys, Mrs. Best. Y'all say what's up to her.
You're so funny, not by popular demand. I'm just glad to be here. Y'all, these lives mean a lot to me because James lives so far from me. So I'm always grateful to be here. It's a time. Like the video, subscribe to his channel. His content, in my opinion, is better than mine. So y'all need to subscribe.
Don't
Man.
say that. No, your content is amazing. Like, don't be doing that. But no, like we be having the Bill Collector comments was off the chain. I loved it. You guys came through, especially shout out to my girl, Dr. Jim Bunny, who missed us this morning. That's okay. That was a last minute thing because yesterday I was really busy and could not do it. So I'm glad I was able to do it today. Um, and also shout out to a bitch say winning. She was also in the comments, lighting us up too. You know, that's my girl as well. We be cutting it up here, you guys, over the weekend. We be doing it big. So make sure you guys like and comment and subscribe to both channels. Both me and Mrs. Best cover different reality TV shows, and we come on each other's channels. Also to lend support, but also give our opinions on reality TV shows we already watch. And I'm gonna tell y'all like this. Y'all be watching me, but don't be subscribing to me. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, get the algorithm going for us, especially if you like what you see. Come on now, it's not that hard. It really is. It's one little button. One little button make a whole lot of difference. But if y'all watching right now, I know that I did my damage control. This is Love and Marriage Huntsville, Season 9, Episode 9, Open Houses, Closed Mouths episode. It was okay for what it was. It was a filler, if I ain't never seen a filler episode. And this episode really was geared a lot towards Martell. And, you know, that's what we'll say. So we open up the scene of episode with Trish. She's working in her office with her laptop that was blank. We learned that Trisha is an engineer. She's been an engineer for 18 years. Me and Mrs. Best were both surprised by that because of how she comes off on this show. So she must be very book smart and just ain't got no common sense. That's okay. There's a lot of people that don't have no common sense, you know. Another one I could think of off the top of my head, Tara from Love and Hip Hop New York. She was very book smart. She just didn't have no common sense. So, you know, that's just what we do in here. But Trish tells Ken that she's ready to go into entrepreneurship. She wants to become a fitness instructor. She started, you know, training people during the pandemic 2020. And she wanted, you know, just to continue that board. And she really feels like now's the time to really go for it. And I will say, because I have another friend in LA who did the same thing. It was actually the year after the pandemic. He actually started doing online training, started a YouTube channel just like I am. I will put his information in my description box as well. So yes, also subscribe to his content because he does really well. And also, you know, just realistically going through goals. So he has a lot of subscribers on YouTube because everyone is in the fitness cringe right now. I might get into it myself actually, considering what I look like and what I will look like after I'm done with it. So I think it's a good business venture. They then moved the conversation to Marquez and how, you know, he was acting up at their event, which I feel like he was gaslit, but that's neither here nor there. You know, she said that, you know, her son had to pull him, you know, just kind of talk to him. And then the next morning, when she was doing her daughter's hair, the daughter said, "Oh my God, he's no longer dad to me. He's him or he's Marquez." And Ken goes, "That's unfortunate." And that is. That's very unfortunate on two things. One, that the daughter feels that way about her father. And two, the fact that Tristan didn't do any damage control to kind of rear Marquez back into the daughter's, you know, good gracious to say, you know, he's still your father, still love him because, you know, we both are going through a lot. This is not easy for anybody. When you're older, you understand. I feel like she should have did some damage control with that daughter. I don't know if she did. Now, she could have, but I don't feel like she did. I really don't. Mrs. Best, how do you feel about that scene?
The same as you. I don't feel sorry for Trish. I'm not trying to be heartless. I respect Trish a lot. You know, to become an engineer, as quiet as it's kept, is not easy. Okay. And she's probably responsible for most of the infrastructure of Huntsville, if that's the case of what she did for a living. However, I think a lot of single mothers or women who are going through separations, divorce, things like that. When the father becomes absent, because let's call a spade, it is very clear that Marquez, to a certain extent, is not there for the kids as much as he should have been. But in order for a child to feel so strongly about him in a negative way, but to feel so positively about Ken in a positive way that relates as if Ken is the father, tells me that Trish is in this little girl's ear. It's harder with the older kids because the older kids grow up with their mother and father in this type of situation. It was like that with my parents too when they split up. I grew up with my parents married, so nothing my mom could say got me away from my dad. But when it came to my younger siblings, she spoke negatively of him. I don't think Trish is speaking negatively of Marquez, but based on what we saw at that party last week and how comfortable she was speaking about him in front of everyone and how comfortable he was trying to speak about their situation, they give me the couple that will argue in front of whoever, wherever. And I think that the kids will form an opinion based on that. So I don't know. Trish, behave like an engineer. Why are you on this show? You don't need the money. You
Well, and
crying like, oh, I'm a single mom and this and oh, it's so hard. Trish, there's a difference between an engineer as a single parent and somebody who's just working at a local grocery store
right.
or somebody who's doing something else. Like you, it's hard, but she made it seem like she just had nothing else. And I'm like, wait, you a damn engineer? What the hell?
You could take care of him. Like I just don't understand. Unless she the kind of engineer, there's tiers to engineering. There really is. So
Mhm.
maybe, it ain't really what it is. Like there's a difference between being an engineer for Chevy or Ford than being an engineer over there at Pepsi with me. So I think that, maybe that's kind of where we're looking at. Maybe there's some tiers there, but even still, that's still a good salary. Now, but the another thing they mention is, the marriage thing. And, Trish has cold feet when it comes to, because Kim's ready to propose and get that going before the ink is dry on her divorce decree. And I feel like for me, I feel like she's dragging her feet for different reasons other than she's letting go. I don't think she's scared about repeating what she did. I just don't think Ken is the one. I just don't think she feels that way. And it's not that it can happen because it very much could. I just think right now he's moving quicker than she is. And he needs to be questioning that versus trying, because it's almost coming off like he's forcing her to get married again and just have this life without her really processing that other marriage. That's how I feel. I don't know. I could be thinking this wrong. How do you feel about that, Mrs. Best?
Stupid StreamYard app. Sorry, y'all. The I guess it's the day of agreeing with James. Here's the thing. Trish don't want to marry that man. I don't think she wants to marry a man. If a woman wants to marry a man, she'll be so excited to even hear him speak about it. Even if she may not say it, you would see her eyes light up. When this man mentions wanting to marry her, she looks like she wants to crawl back into her home or under a rock, seek and build a weapon and come after him with it so that he realizes that she don't want to marry him. I don't think she wants to marry him, and I think that she is smart to not marry the first person or first, well, not first person, but you smart to not marry the first like real relationship that you have when you just got out of a long-term one, especially with how long she was with the other dude. So I think she's smart. I wish that she would verbalize that a little bit better because he cannot get with a married woman regardless if she's separated or not, and then rush her to get married. And that's how you know. And Marquez had a point when he told him, this man don't know nothing about marriage and does not understand Marquez's position, regardless on the opinions of him. Because if he did, he would understand that you can't just move on that fast. And even if she is moved on and is over him, why would she want to jump into, like she said, another 13-year mistake? So I am at the very least glad to see she has some type of sense as it relates to, you know, marrying again. However, comma, Ken, how many times does a woman have to show you she don't want you before you realize that she
It's
don't
not
want
even
you?
the fact that she don't want him. It's just the fact that she's not ready to jump into the stage you're trying to jump in. It'd be a different thing if Trish was like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to get rid of this marriage, so we can go to the courthouse and get our situation." She's like saying, "Look, bruh, I'm just now getting this over with, and here you come trying to already rush us to the altar. Like, calm down, let's chill. Because when she said eventually, it made me feel like there's something to this. And I don't know what it could be, but I feel like the only red flags that I see with Ken is that he's pushy and he's a little bit I don't want to say delusional, but that's kind of where I'm going. He's a little delusional because this is not the ideal circumstance. Her having a whole husband while you living in a house with her, and then her dragging her feet still. Even after having the paper signed and notarized, she's still dragging her feet with this whole divorce thing. So it's like I don't know what context clues you're not picking up on, sir, but that lady not trying to be with you, like not like that right now. Now it could change, but right now I don't see it. So moving on from there, we have a scene with Maurice and Martell. Maurice stops by Martell's house to talk to him, and try to get some understanding of how he can get him and Marceau to some level of cordial. And Martell pretty much says that, when it comes down to the situation and when people come for him, it's always the other people. Like he never does anything to pretty much provoke someone to want to come from him. And so Maurice says, so you're infallible, is what you're saying. And Martell didn't know what that meant. And I was like, hey, Dr. Jen. Hey, hey, hey. I'm so glad you made it. Thank you for joining us, love. We appreciate you. So when it came down to it, Maurice had to explain to him what infallible meant. And Martell had to backtrack it. And he says, no, majority of the time, it's not me. It's, I'm not saying I'm perfect. And I'm looking at Martell like, so you really finna do this on national TV right now when we can go back almost 7 years and look at what you did personally to get people to form the opinions that they have of you and to act the way that they act with you, including the ex-wife that y'all both were trying to talk about, which we'll get into in a second. So you just really just excluded yourself from all responsibility to that, sir. I thought that was crazy. Mrs. Best, how did you feel when, Maurice tried to level with
Maurice better than me, because if you do what you did to my brother, we ain't got nothing to talk about.
him?
We don't need to meet. We don't need to be friends. We don't need to be nothing. We don't. If I go, I'm not going to say your brother's name on YouTube to be respectful, but if I go and disrespect your brother in the same way that Martell disrespected Marceau, all these M's, it's confusing. But if I go and speak to your family member or a close friend of yours in the same way, you're just going to be rocking with me. Like, tell that man he is wrong and allow him to see that he is wrong and rip the benefits of his mistakes. The only person that's putting Martell in his place that's pissed him off at this point is Tisha. And I'm here for it. But why she got to do it?
Right.
Like, I'm just annoyed with it. Martell is not very smart.
He's
I'm
not.
tired of him. There's nothing that he can do to manipulate anyone else into feeling like he is innocent, like he has been wronged. Although at one point in this episode he did make a little sense, but
He did at the end, which we'll get to. Yeah, he did at the end. There's some part, and I can't believe I'm about to say this on my channel. So we'll wait because I'm still in disbelief about what I'm about to say, but we'll get to that in a minute. So as we move on, Maurice makes this correlation, which was a horrible correlation, Maurice. I don't know why you did this because this is not the same thing. But he was just like, he said, with Melody, she basically tried to hold me accountable for my DUI and try to correlate that with her grandmother's passing. Like, you're not going to make me the spokesperson on DUIs and everything like that. The same way she was trying to make you the spokesperson of cheating. Like, whenever there was a situation of cheating, she always reverted to you. And I said, Maurice, very clever, very clever. But those of us who are smart and actually know what those situations were based on a 45-minute episode knows that that's not what she did. But that was very cute. And if you want that, we'll give it to you.
he called it cute. Maurice needs to go. This scene, like, I've already felt that way because Kimmy was too wishy-washy as after like season 2, in my opinion. And then I think her health scare um probably changed her a little bit. And I don't think she's for reality TV or should be on reality TV no more. I don't think she's in a place of drama. However, you're on a public platform. And even when Maurice and Kimmy leaves this show, because of this show, they will forever be publicly known, right? So when you go and do something like drive behind the wheel of a car while intoxicated on a public platform, you have to expect that people are going to talk about it. And you have to expect that you're going to have to answer to it in some way, shape, or form. Karen Huger didn't want to talk about hers either, but she at the very least was like, said something. Maurice don't want to say anything. And I think a piece of it is because he's an attorney, but it's also a slap in the face, in my opinion, because this show don't give nothing and hasn't in seasons. So you finally got something you could talk about and you don't want to talk about it. What else outside of this DUI makes you and your wife relevant or interesting enough to be on this show?
It's
Nothing.
not even that. It's like you're missing the entire. You was skated over because I know he got the point, but he skated over that exact point. The correlation is that she was trying to tell you that you're on a public platform, and instead of you making a statement to say what you did was irresponsible and you apologize for anybody that it could have affected based on any trauma, because there's Melody's not the only person that has lost someone due to a drunk driver. There's plenty of people out in this world that have lost people, and that could be re-triggering. And the fact that they have to mention on TV is what she was saying. But Maurice is trying to make it seem like, oh no, hurt people hurt people. Well, Maurice, let me bring something to you. Like, if Martell hadn't cheated, Melody would have never been hurt. If Martell wouldn't have kept going to this same woman, they would still be married. She gave him a second chance on public television, even after the humiliation of finding out her husband was cheating, and still took him back and told him to stop doing it, and he continued to do it. That's not Melody's fault. Maybe in some respect it is, because I wouldn't have given him that many chances, but still, not holding him accountable for what he did versus her response is crazy to me, that someone would actually put that in context to make him feel like he's not wrong in that situation. That's exactly what Maurice did, and then used his situation to then checkmate that and double down on it. Again, I just felt that was laughable. That was laughable to me, because that's like, for those of us who understand, regardless if you like Melody or not, she didn't do anything wrong, or at least if she did it wrong, she didn't do it where the public could see it, and Martell can't prove it. So it's like, what do you want from us? And that was a horrible, horrible correlation. I was like, Maurice, I get you trying to make something out of nothing. You trying to make him feel better in that moment, but that's not what that needed to do. Because those of us who understand what happened in that situation based on the television show, and that's all we have to speak of, don't see it that same way, sir. Sorry, I don't know what else. I don't know how you were trying to make us see it, but that was
Either way, with Mel, Martell made a baby on her while she was married.
right.
She sat there for seasons and tried to make it seem like her relationship was okay. Still ended up getting pregnant, having another. These people, these two people, well, the men on the show have a problem with accountability.
They do. It's crazy.
It's unfortunate because
I want to meet. I
to
want to
be in
meet
a marriage,
Scott's parents. I want to meet them. I want them to come on the show.
they're
I
a piece of work because they seem like chauvinist, sexist, like pretentious assholes that don't have a reason to be that way. But the men on this show all lack accountability. It is extremely frustrating because the show is called Love and Marriage Huntsville. We're seeing Black people in love in the South in a marriage. You cannot have a marriage without accountability. That is one of those things. Um, so that's why I think all these people's marriages is a mess. The Scots just don't want us to see it.
Right. That's just point blank. That's what it is. So, but that's all I have with Maurice and Martell. I thought that was the most obnoxious point of this episode that I've ever seen in any of these episodes. Like, okay, Maurice, fine. If that's what you want to do to make Martell feel better, fine. I don't really care. I'm not going to mention what Martell said at the end because that was just stupid. Like, come on. Move on, growth, as you did with this therapy session, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it's annoying. So next thing we're gonna talk about, Kimmy goes to meet up with, Trish goes to meet up with Kimmy at the office because she wanted to run by Kimmy about starting entrepreneurship and getting some pointers of what she should do, and also look at maybe some commercial properties as well. So she talks to Kimmy about it and, says that she wants to do this fitness journey. Kimmy says she has some properties that Trish may want to consider, one being a former dance studio. So, that might be a good start. It's under 100K. So, and Trish like, oh, that's great. It's wonderful. And then the conversation turns into the follow-up with Mel, because remember, Trish met up with her and Tisha, and they were and Kimmy said she was going to address Mel. So now she's bringing the information back to Trish of what happened. And pretty much what Kimmy says is, Melody was like, I told two people about it. It is what it is. I felt it was lipstick and everything of that sort. And that was pretty much it. And, Trisha was just smiling, laughing because she was calling her sit down with Melody as well. And then she also brings up some new information about Martell. And Kimmy was like, every time this girl mentions Martell and her in a situation, the story always gets further in more details that were not uncovered the first time we heard it. And I said, that's because she is lying. Point blank, period. Like, I'm sorry, after this episode, I believe way more happened because the story is not adding up. You guys are trying to cover your behinds, and it's not working. It's not. We're not that silly. So she says that it was actually Chris Fletcher that wanted to hook up Trisha Martell. And I'm like, now I could have recalled Martell already saying this and bringing this up when they were at the gym. And so they flashed back, and I was like, okay, so I'm not tripping because I could have sworn we talked about this already. That Chris Fletcher was the one that put them together. And Kim was like, oh. And that was when him and Mel were still married. And Trisha said, well, maybe the ink wasn't dry on the divorce just yet. And I said, well, damn. So then that makes me vindicate Mel for her asking those questions. Because she wants to know if you were another one other than Coleslaw over there. That was sleeping with her man. Mrs. Best, how did you feel about that?
I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm moving. You said about Fletcher and that whole stuff with
Mm-hmm.
Mel.
Yeah.
I this the one time Nell getting up and doing too much and going and grabbing her
Oh no, we're
husband's.
not there yet. Sorry, no, hold on. We're not there yet. We're talking about Trisha and Kimmy talking about how this story came about of Chris Fletcher hooking them up initially. And I
Oh, see
said,
the way they edit this damn episode. This
yeah,
show sucks. I'm so sorry. The conversation to me annoyed me because we just saw it come up again at the end of the show. I'm not gonna comment yet the opinion, but I feel like Trish just be wanting something to talk about with these people and don't want to talk about herself fully. So she likes to bring up other people and bring their names into it. But with Fletcher being her mom's nephew or her cousin in some way, whatever the hell, I don't think she would lie about that part of things. But again, why does it matter how you met Martell? No one's like, oh, how did you meet James? How did you meet this person? Why does it matter if
because
you
there's more
never?
to this story.
No,
There's
that's what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
So, Trish, you are annoyed because people keep questioning you about this situation. And now you have further to say, but it's like, we're not going to believe you ever. It's like she keeps talking about this. Why even expose Fletcher?
Even by exposing him, I don't understand how that would in any way vindicate you from what the public is already thinking. Like to
She
me, I
doesn't
feel like
understand either. She doesn't understand anything but numbers, clearly, because
right, because I feel like you just dug your grave with your own tongue. Because we are trying to get past this. Because pretty much all of the YouTubers who recap the show are 50-50. Some feel like they definitely hit the home run with this, and some feel like maybe they were just cordial, just talking, and it really was her trying to train him. But y'all have to understand something. The reason why I feel like they made the home run is because she said to Stormy when they were in her living room, she does not train men. She said that. So I would like to think that that part is true. Why would she train Martell in 2020 if she strictly does not train men? She said she'll make an exception just this once. And that to me made it seem like that was the first time she had ever trained Martell was Stormy's event. So how do we get to going back to 2020 and you were training him then? It does not make sense, no matter how we put this together. So that's why I said she's digging a hole even further with her own tongue because, ma'am, let this situation go and let us all forget about it. But you keep bringing up different context clues that makes it look like y'all did something. I'm sorry, this is Trish. I'm not putting this into context. I'm just going by what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is her doing it to herself. She's self-sabotaging herself because we didn't forgot about this. Well, not really, but we did, like in retrospect. But I don't know. Trish to me, she's strange. But that was pretty much the moment between her and Kimmy. The next thing we'll talk about is Martell's in therapy. The therapist comes by the house and
okay, I'm a mute. I'm a mute.
No, don't put yourself down. Would you? The therapist can't come by the house. Very pretty therapist, might I add, but
Martell is the type of man who needs a therapist, yes. But he is also the type of man that I think any good therapist would say, hey, so my schedule's a little booked up and I want to really pay attention to your needs. And I think that you would do better with this person since I'm not available. And that person needs to have a penis.
I agree. I think he needs a male therapist
I,
as
I
well.
don't I
I
don't
do
think
not
he
think
can
a
go to
female
therapy.
therapist.
He's the type of client who seems like he would try to manipulate his way through his therapy sessions. And yes, there are people like that, y'all. There
Yes.
are people like that. I've started doing some light therapy virtually, not receiving therapy, but providing it to other people, of course, supervised. I am a student of that. I will say that he is the type of man, I can't say too much on here, but he is definitely the type of man who would do better with that type of therapist, especially if this therapist has an understanding of his backstory and stuff, which it seemed like she did. I don't think that this was his therapist. I think she
You
is a
don't think you don't think
therapist.
she was a therapist?
I don't think she's his therapist. I think that's a friend or a jump off that he probably sleep with from time to time who happens to be a therapist. But I do not think that that is his actual therapist. I just don't.
Yeah, her body language was weird. I'm
It
not
was
gonna
it was
lie.
not professional.
Yeah,
Even when
it
you get
was
to
weird.
know
Yes.
your therapist well or become cool, some people get cool with their therapist, invite them to weddings and stuff. There is still that barrier. She was just
It was
weird.
something about her. Her energy was just weird. It was like when he was mentioning, the things he needed to change, and talked about the kids and everything, and he goes, "That's it," and she went. It was her facial expression. I was like, "No, why would you do that? Like,
Right.
why?
She wasn't
Why would you do that
professional.
response?" Yeah, she wasn't, and that's why I was like, Martell, come on now. He needs a hey bitch, they winning. He needs the black male older therapist that's
There
on
you go, girl. There you
Dr.
go.
Francis. Dr. Francis, yes. Because Dr. Francis, but he not gonna see Dr. Francis because Dr. Francis is gonna tell him the truth.
He's gonna avoid seeing people who, in
Mhm.
Martell's mind, he feels will hold him accountable. And
Yes,
he knows that if he sees a male therapist, that they are going to see past his handsome, chiseled body, and they're
right.
gonna want to just get down to the nitty gritty. They're gonna want to figure things out. So, yeah, I don't. I just. You right.
I 100% agree with that because her body language, I'm telling y'all, it was so weird watching this therapy session. I was like, Martell, come on. Who is this lady? No disrespect to her, because she may be a therapist and she may be great at what she does. I just think for me, I like professional. Like I've had to stop seeing certain therapists because I had therapists who would cuss during the session. I don't like that. That's unprofessional. So I had to say, sorry, you are great at what you do, but you're not for me. I would like to keep it professional. If I'm not cussing or swearing, you shouldn't be either. I had another therapist who um, talked about like inconclusive things that were not relatable to what I was going through. I had to let them go. Like there's certain times where I feel like certain therapists have to carry a certain decorum, and I felt like she didn't have that. I felt like I was watching him talk to a homegirl, like Mrs. Best, a homegirl or a jump off or something. This did not seem like therapy to me. It just didn't. He kept talking about the kids and what they were in. He kept talking about, what he'd like to do, which is nothing wrong with. But I just felt like for me, watching her her disposition and everything, and the way she was looking at him, it was like, no, I don't. That's not gonna work. Sorry, that's not gonna work. This is not the therapies. If you was going to actually show therapy sessions, I need to see the real nitty gritty. I don't need to see someone stopping at your house late at night talking about, oh yeah, let's talk about the kids and how wonderful what they're doing, which is all beautiful. But that was not the therapy session I want to see. Sorry, it wasn't moving at all. So with that being said, we didn't drag that apart. We don't even need to talk about it no more. Mrs. Best, anything you want to add to that?
No, absolutely not.
Hmm. Yeah, perfect. We'll move on. So Martell's having an open house. He one of the houses he's built with another real estate firm. I didn't catch the realtor's name or whatever, but he has a few people show up, and he has some of the cash show up. So we have Kimmy and Maurice, we have Trisha and Ken, and we have Chris and Nell Fletcher. So they come over, and the men split apart from the women. And they began talking about the conversations about, Kimmy asked Trish about her divorce. And, and this is where Trish let us know that she has not filed the divorce yet. And Kim was like, well, why not? And even Nell was like, well, what you waiting on? And she goes, well, I'm back in the office now. I'm not working from home anymore. So I just haven't had time to go to the courthouse. And I'm looking at Trisha like, I mean, girl, you can go on your lunch break and send those papers. All you doing is saying, here you go. Everything is signed. And then we learned that Marquez still has not signed the papers. So it was like,
They don't want to divorce each other.
I think that too. I'm starting to think, I really think it's what Melody said. I think she's still in love with him. I do. I think she's still in love with him. She just does not want to let him go just yet because she knows he's not going to do right. Hold on. I say this every time that comes up in my therapy sessions, including curse words. I have to be real. I'm not at therapy to be professional. Sometimes, different. I don't do it. I don't really cuss that much. I don't, which is ironic that my channel is called Watch on My Reviews because I feel like this is the only safe space where I feel like I'm free to cuss. I don't really cuss in my everyday life. Like I try not to. Maurice was there to redirect Martell's attention off the Scots and back to Melody. Yep. Brenda W. Absolutely. That's exactly what Maurice was doing. And I peeped that from the moment he said Melody's name. I said, oh, I see what you're doing here, sir. That's not going to work. We watched the show from season 1. Not going to happen. You're not going to redirect this one. But thank you for your comment. I appreciate you. I hope you subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you commenting. But we're going to go ahead and talk to the men. The men are out there talking. Chris Fletcher brings up Marcel and where him and Martell, are at this moment. And Martell said, there's nothing. There's nothing that could be done. And Chris Fletcher goes, well, can y'all at least be cordial so he can come to the events and everything? And Martell was like, I didn't do anything. He's still stuck on that. I didn't do anything. I feel like he should have protected like all this. And I'm looking at Martell like, how old are we again? Now you want some grown ass man to protect you just because he gave his opinion? And I think that a lot of the world acts like this now. It's called a straw man argument where you can't really disagree with my opinion of something because if you do, that means you're against me. And I'm going to redirect that, or I'm going to tell you that you're wrong because you don't agree with my opinion. That's what that is. So I feel like Martell, go somewhere with that. And going back to the ladies, this is where Trish said, because I think Kimmy, with her messy ass, brought it up about how Chris Fletcher was the one to introduce him, and Nell had no idea. Nell said, "Wait, he did what?" Yeah, and Trish like, "Yeah, he's tried to put us together, back when he was still with Melody." And so Kimmy's like, "Yeah, that was a conflict of interest." So Nell's like, "Let me go get Chris Fletcher because we got to clear this up right now." And so as they're coming outside, and the men were in this deep conversation with Ken and Martell because they were talking about Marquez. And Martell gave some advice, and I thought I would never say this on my channel. Watch on my reviews. This is your first. I actually agree with Martell. When he was giving advice to Ken, he was just saying, you have to consider the fact that Marquez may still be in love with her. And maybe what you should do is you should probably take a step back and let her come to you in her own timing and give her time because there's going to be moments where even though they're broken apart, that they still may feel something for one another. And with you being there, you may just be the distraction that never allows them to deal with it, including the children too. And I 100% agreed with that. I agree. I think that that's what Ken is missing out of this because you could say that man's not a real man because he's not stepping up to the children, but you may not understand how hard that is to come into another man's house disrupted because he's the father of the 2 children. I totally got what Martell was saying, and I agree with that. Mrs. Best, how did you feel about that?
It's the first time since I've watched this show that Martell has said something smart. I thoroughly agreed with it, especially being married. There was a period in my marriage, like 7 years ago. I've been married a little while, y'all, but there was a period 7 years ago where my husband was just arguing and arguing. I got sick of it, so I dipped. I swore I was gonna divorce his ass. We're still married happily too. So couples like it's not like the regular toxic relationships that people go through when they're not married. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's different. Every couple is different. But sometimes people say that they're done and they're not actually done.
Right.
Sometimes people say that they're done with something and they may not be ready to be actually done with it emotionally, financially, whatever the hell the reason is. Trish is clearly not done with this marriage, because if she were done with the marriage, there would have been a divorce. There would have been legal separation. There would have been something. These people haven't done anything. They're just staying married and complaining here and there. To a certain extent, I feel like Trish likes the drama and the toxicity. And I feel like Marquez is used to it and expecting her to like come home to daddy or something. So I don't know. We can say whatever we want to say about Trish. We could say whatever we want to say about Marquez. We could say whatever we want to say and have our feelings about Ken. But until these people sign the damn paperwork, they don't want to get a divorce, because Marquez, you gave her these papers. We saw you give them to her on screen. How you get somebody unsigned paperwork? Talk about, yeah, I'll release you. And then Trish, you gonna sign the paper, pay for a notary, and not do anything with the document. So they want to be married. Martell probably sees that. It's very clear Marquez still, loves this woman. So I agree
Mhm.
with everything he said. And that's why I'm a firm believer. Y'all will never get me to change my opinion. Do not date people until they are legally divorced. Not
Yes.
just file for divorce, not considering divorce. I don't care if they've been separated for 20 years and ain't lived together and spoken. Do not date people until they actually get divorced. There's even waivers you can get in most states if you can't afford to do it. So there's no excuse for these people to still be together going through all of this drama. And I think Martell is right, and Ken definitely needed to hear it.
He
Love
did.
is, it doesn't matter if love is in the picture. I responded to a bitch they win it. It's clearly just sexual energy. I feel like that's what the marriage was based on.
Yeah,
But
me too.
they're still legally married. So until somebody files for separation or files the paperwork that's signed, they clearly want to be together. If you don't want to be with somebody, you'll be filing the paperwork so fast.
But I feel like this is the reason why she's not in such a hurry to marry Ken. Because I feel like there
She
is
missed
some.
that eggplant.
Yeah, I do. Hi, Naya. Nice seeing you, love. I appreciate you being here tonight. I do feel like the sex part with Marquez was way better than it is with Ken. And I feel
The
like,
broke ones usually are. It's a
yeah,
shame.
yeah, it's a shame. It really is. But like, I feel like that's what she's missing. I think that's why she can't 100% go along with the commitment of wanting to marry this man right away before this divorce is even final. Because I feel like that's really what it is. I think it's the sex. I really do, because that's the only thing I can think of. I'm gonna respond to a couple of comments before we move on. But Marquez is an immature clown. He has a mother and father that is still married. It seems like he has a good foundation. Sometimes
Them
those
be
are
the people a lot of times that end
the
up alone.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think because seeing, especially if you have parents that are happily married, sometimes you have the expectations of what you see in your parents' marriage versus
Yes.
thinking of your own, and not what
Mhm.
works in your parents or for your parents is going to work for you.
Absolutely, because you have to understand your parents married in a different time. Things were different, people were different, the society was different. So when you get to your time when you're married, you can't really have that same foundation of those same expectations because life is different. You now have to provide, and you now have to go through the different emotions of what time is today. So I feel like when people say they have married parents and they have a good foundation, that could be true, but at the same time, think about when the parents got married and think of where we are versus that time. That's what I usually like to tell people when they bring that up, because for me, I have grandparents that have been married 65 years and I'm yet to be married. And it's kind of like one of those situations where I have a great foundation. They set great expectations of each other. I see it every day. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I can't follow that because I could be a horrible husband. You get what I'm saying? Like, I could be someone who I don't think I will be, but I'm just saying I could be someone who misses something that my partner needs. And by me having that foundation, I'm like, well, that's what I saw my grandfather do. So I feel like I should do it. That doesn't always work. So I just feel like we kind of need to meet people where they are. And maybe he just wasn't ready. He just did what he felt was familiar to him when he married Trish. The Scots are such hypocrites. They can keep Melody's name in their mouth, but get upset when Melody says anything about them. I want Maurice and Kimmy off the show. Yeah, we've been saying that because
That's a word. Yeah.
Maurice and
They're
Kimmy
also boring.
years if they ever had a storyline. What was outside of her having cancer and beating it, which we prayer champions. We thank God she beat it. What else have they had? I didn't care about the Kiowa and the baby store. I didn't care about that because I felt like that was silly. It is Trisha and Ken. That is a gamble. It really is.
Yeah.
He is not
It's
one.
a bigger gamble though, because he's trying to. I'm not letting that go. It's a bigger. Don't fucking date nobody, y'all, who's married. Just don't. Wait for them to be done. Because Ken is stupid to even. I feel like we all pay attention to Trish and Marquez because it's easy to pay attention to, but Ken is shady and manipulative and likes to try and gaslight everybody. And I'm looking at Ken like, you're a big red flag. He is quite literally a big ass red flag. Why do you want this woman? And I totally agree that she does not want to marry Ken. And I wish that she would just tell him that.
Yeah, just tell them that. Just say we
Just
can just
tell
live
him
in sin.
that.
Just live in sin. It works right now. Like the
Not live
relationship.
in sin.
Yeah,
I
just live in
can't
sin.
stand you.
Yeah, like it works. Why make it complicated? I'm agree, but most of the time, if you don't have good morals, if you have good morals in your household, we as children grow into adults with those same morals. Not all the time. Not all the time. Most of the time we do, but not all the time. Close your legs to marry a man, shout out you're right, or a married woman in that case. You're right. It also doesn't mean that their marriage is a happy marriage.
That marriage is a mess. I feel like Ken and Trish got married when they were hella young,
I
probably
think it's
because
because she got pregnant.
probably because she got
I think she got
pregnant.
pregnant. Mm-hmm.
And that's still a thing in the South. I got cousins that have gone through that, got pregnant, and then my uncles and aunties were like, "You gonna marry that boy?"
Yep.
Or tell him to marry them. Like I have cousins that's doing that right now. It's a sad thing, but they
I don't
are.
think people still did that. I felt like that's such a
No, it
to
still
marry.
happens.
Wow.
Yeah, it still happens. My cousin going through that. She said, "I don't want to marry him. I just want my baby." I said, "Oh, okay, whatever the
Because
hell."
what does that teach us? That teaches that that's supposed to solve whatever issue. So now I have to raise a child in a volatile household because I might not get along with this fool, after a few months of living with him. So I'm supposed to bring my baby into that kind of environment versus being a happy environment. Like, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I just can't. I just can't subscribe to that because that's such an old school. Because y'all have to understand, marriage back in the day was a business arrangement. Your daddy usually sold his child because he needed a couple of chickens, some cows, and some hay. That's what happened back in those times. That was an easy trade. That mindset is still here today, where now you get pregnant, you got to make her an honest woman. That whole mindset is
Mhm.
so stupid. It just really is.
It
Like
is.
marry someone because not only just because you love them, it's because you truly can't see your life and where it stands today without them. And the reason why I said where it stands today is because you may not feel that way tomorrow.
I actually agree with that. That was part of why years ago I was separated from my spouse and the baby girl, come back. I love you. I need this. The only reason I gave it another shot is because I'm like, damn, I really can't see my life without you.
I
And it
remember
has
these phone calls, y'all.
I didn't know what to do. James is like, what you gonna do? Are you gonna file the paper or you not? I didn't
because
know what to do.
because like girl, it was like girl every day. It was like James, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, girl, you either gonna give him another chance or you're not. It's only two options you could do. And I'm glad she made the choice that she did. All those phone calls for that time made it worth it. Like it
You were
really
my
did.
therapist. You should have been a psych major. You give great advice. But no, on a serious note, separate for your recap, I will say this. Trish and Ken, though I don't like them, and I don't care for Marquez and his goofy, small-headed ass. His head is small, y'all. It's very small. I will say this. They are the only thing that's somewhat interesting on this show right now.
That's crazy that you just said that. But yes, very true. But we're gonna move on, y'all. We spent too much time. We're gonna talk the last part. Hold on, what did it say? What it said? Girl, part of the time I live in the South. We don't do the. I don't consider
Louisiana.
that the South. I don't consider Florida the South, even though I know it is. I don't consider that South. Like Florida, like to be right when the cusp of Alabama hit y'all. I don't consider that the South. Even though I haven't been through all of Florida, I just lived in South Florida. I get it though. I do get it. That was my only watching. It was boring. That's why I'm not covering everything.
I
But the last
struggle.
thing we're going to talk about is all the men going into the house. And this is where I feel like, what was the point of this? Why does Trish keep bringing this up? But basically, this is confronting Chris Fletcher on him being the possible plug. And they were like, well, how did the story happen? And Martell said, I called Chris Fletcher. He said he was at the gym. And I said, hey, is any girls up in there? He said, yeah, there's a girl named Trish. And, she's up here. And Trish just smiling like, yeah, see, I told y'all, see. And it was like, this don't explain why you went to Martell and Melody's house to train him, ma'am. This is just the plug. So would you sit there just smiling? It's like, get them off my screen, all of them. Because Chris Fletcher didn't deny it. He said that that's how it happened. And it's like, and I'm with Ken. This is the one time I'm going to agree with Ken. Ken said, and I quote, it seems like there's more to this story than Trish and Martell are leading us to believe. Because every time the story comes up, there is some new detail that just magically appears. So this is what causes me to have certain, questions in my own mind and pause. He didn't say that verbatim, but that's what he was saying in his confession. And I'm like, if you, sir, are the other man of the marriage, like this woman is married, and you technically are the other man in this whole situation. So why would it be so hard for her to believe that she wouldn't do that with Martell either?
That's what he knows. That's why he made that comment. Ken and Trish probably have problems that we don't get to see on camera. I feel like off camera he's probably really pressuring her to marry him. I genuinely feel that way. But I also feel like he is also pressuring her for more details about how to get with him, because he knows the same way you get her is the same way you might lose her. And it's going to make it harder to keep her.
All he going to do is just move on to the next married woman. So I feel like what we really talking about here. That's a super ignorant mindset. I want to say you talking about people who marry just because they give people pregnant. That's what I'm gonna believe that comment is meant for, and I agree.
But it is.
I just feel like that's what he gonna do. If this don't work out, he just gonna go to the next married woman because hey, third time's a charm, right? Third time's a charm, unless he did it before, like the other two women, Trish and other old girl. Unless that, but third time might be a charm. Maybe Trish ain't the one. Maybe you'll go to the next married woman, and maybe her process may be a little faster. I don't know. I just feel like he has a habit of doing this. So I want to believe that he would do it again. Because if he did it twice, what would stop you a third time? Some people just don't learn their lesson, Mrs. Best. Some people just don't learn their lesson. But that's where the episode goes off. You guys, I'm sorry. I just have to laugh because the fact that they just won't admit to whatever it was, and the fact that they keep going around in circles and circles and circles and circles with this Martell and Trish story, just y'all, come on. It's not that hard. It's to put in context. Just say you did it. Y'all both grown. I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, the only person I feel like would have a problem with this is Coleslaw. That's the only person I feel like would have a problem with this, because it would have been interrupting her segue between her and Melody, because now we have to add a third person into this equation. So you weren't just the other woman. He had a whole other woman.
That's probably true.
That's how I'm looking at it. They keep painting this picture. That's how I see it. Sometimes paintings, when you look at a painting, sometimes you have to accept the painting for what it really looks like to you versus what the artist says it really is. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it, you guys. That was Love and Marriage Huntsville. I got one more live. We're going to do a little updates live because reality TV stars, are just dropping bombs about or family members of reality TV stars are just dropping all kind of stuff. And there shows that me and Mrs. Best recap of, characters on there. So I got to do that live. But make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Thank you to everybody who joined us this evening. I appreciate all of you. Please make sure if you can, make my next live. If you can't, no harm, no foul. We will be live on my channel tomorrow for Married to Medicine and Real Housewives of Potomac. And I'm pre-warning you guys now, tomorrow is going to be a very difficult day for me because it is my father's birthday. And for those of you guys who do not know, I lost my father in June. So it's going to be a tough day for me. So we're going to get through it though. We're going, because my dad would have wanted it that way. So we're going to get through it. But thank you guys for being here. Probably, oh, hold on, I'm going to answer this. Probably not. Because like Mrs. Best said last week, I believe he does that exercise necessity that a lot of men do to get those big old muscles, allegedly. Just saying.
He
Just
probably
saying.
can't though. That might be why he's dating women who are in some ways unavailable, but that have kids.
I know men who do it. Okay, but let's get on to the next video. Thank you guys. Make sure you guys go to the next one. I'll see you guys there. Bye bye.